So I thought that I might begin to do kind of a Sunday news weekly recap of some of the stories that I have found to be, number one, backing and in line with a lot of the videos I have done, particularly the Bloodline Invader series. Others that deal directly with other videos, supporting two things, either the continuation of or the foundation, therefore. So, got some stories here I hope you find amusing, and let me know if this is something you like, and if it is, we'll do it on Sunday evenings. All right, here we go. This story, I did a video, it's been about 3 or 4 months ago, called Code Blue, and it merely highlighted the evidence that we were entering in, according to what the evidence was showing, the sixth extinction. Now, since that story I put out, this story has emerged here on The Guardian, talking about the fact that the researchers now talk about the biological annihilation. I mean, come on, this is getting pretty extreme. And as you go through here, there's a video here that I'll actually play for you so you can actually see this. It's just overwhelming, folks. It is beyond, I believe, scientific doubt that the evidence is now showing that the Earth has, in fact, now entered into the sixth extinction. The question, I think, really becomes, does that include Homo sapiens? I mean, I think that's really the question that you begin to see. And I'm going to leave the links, and so you can actually look at the videos yourself. But, you know, look at here. Now, I found this very interesting in this story, was that the largest loss of species on the continents, right? 6 that actually have life. Antarctica, of course, we know that story. But look at here, Asia. Asia really has taken the biggest hit. But by far, all of these are starting to get to the levels. When you start getting past 15% on a species die-off, that begins to tip the scales. And then, of course, by the time you're hitting the 40% mark, it gets to be almost unreversible. And it's not to say that it can't be, but it seems like in the incidences where we have, meaning humans, interdict in certain species, we seem to have devastating effect, and we seem to somehow always screw it up. So this is something I think that we all should be aware, because listen, folks, if the animals are going, then that means we may be next. All right. So I found this story, Engadget.com. Experimental drug could restore memories after brain injury. And I'll give you the recap of the story on this one. So what they have been able to prove in the lab is basically taking what they call TBIs, that's traumatic brain injury. And these are in mice. And by injecting them with this drug known as ISRIB, most remarkable thing is happening. These the mice that get injected with this, their ability to heal their brains is remarkable. Now, I find this to be very hopeful that as they continue to pursue this, that we can find out specifically what is going on, how is this particular substance attaching itself to the brain, and subsequently how, synaptic pathways begin to be rebuilt. It's quite fascinating. I think it's when you look at science, this type of science obviously has some tremendous upside potential for human elements. You talk about how many people that are in crashes. And I also happen to think that if you can begin to repair the synaptic pathways in the brain, then it tells me that you may be able to do a lot more for that, such as Parkinson's, etc. So anyway, I'll leave the link. All right, here's another one. This is out of the Express. Now this one, folks, it's just flat out wrong. I mean, I don't care what your take on gene therapy. I think that there is a place for it. I think it's the next frontier for medical science. But we're seeing already now grotesque, I don't know what you want to call these, species, I guess, but now far exceeding what the natural evolution is. And China's in the spotlight on this one, folks. So what they have done is that they took a dog from genetically modified parents. I guess that's what we would call what? So if you have a GMO, so a genetically modified, I guess a GMP, I don't know. But check that out, folks. Now come on, that's nuts. Let me see if I can actually open this in a new tab. I mean, that's just nuts, folks. Why? And you know where this is going, right? Yeah, you already know. It's going to lead to human experiments. And that's just the problem. I mean, where do you stop this? If you start producing a genetically modified race of superhumans, where is that going to lead to? And it appears that countries really don't care. They're going forward this. And listen, it's happening here in the United States as well. Actually, I think eventually there's going to have to be a global summit on this. And I think that the nations of the world are going to have to come together and set some standards. And of course, there's always going to be those rogue scientists out there. But and you think about it. I mean, folks, you're talking about immortality, potentially. As they continue to understand the human genome, the mitochondrial DNA now, and as they begin to understand how they can begin to manipulate these genes, well, in 50 years from now, you could have a superior race that would absolutely dominate the world. Might be what they're thinking about. Who knows? All right, here's one out of The Guardian as well. So we all talk about stress, right? Stress is a killer. Fact. We know this. We all know this. But yet, our environment is ever more stressful. Paradoxical, isn't it? But here's the thing. We know that stress, leads to so many other ailments of the body, of the mind, of the soul. Now, it appears that it affects the brain. And why wouldn't it? Right? Think about it. And in here, this study here that they conducted from the Wisconsin University School of Medicine, that they found out of the sample group that they had, and you can go in here and read the article for yourself, but what they found was that those that seemed to have jobs that were high intensity stress, right? And I mean, I can think of law enforcement officers. There would be one. I mean, there's a whole host of them. That what this leads to is Alzheimer's, dementia. Sometimes very early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. So there you go. Another reason to find your center, your core, and start meditating on that. All right, here's another one from The Guardian as well. You know, I don't know where they get these reporters, but I love this publication because they really go out there on the outside of the edge, you know, the box. And it's great because this is where we really begin to find what I call the real news. Because we see this type of news and we can immediately begin to correlate how it relates to us personally. So how can we stop algorithms telling lies? Well, I think number one, the thing that caught me on this was this. I did a video called The Ghost in the Machine. And in that video, I was pointing out that there is something about code. And we've known this for quite a while, that code, certain lines of code seem to go rogue. And here, they're talking about lots of algorithms go bad unintentionally. Some of them, however, are made up to be criminal. Algorithms or formula rules, usually written in computer code, that make predictions on future events based on historical patterns. To train an algorithm, you need to provide historical data as well as a definition of success. Now, if you simply take that as the parameter, right, for the equation, well, it certainly gives you tremendous leeway in defining what is historical data. According to who? Whose perspective, right? And then determine what success is. Define success. And then particularly, what I think so often we miss here is that as an author writes a book, right? So is a programmer as well. They're going to leave their psychic imprint. When you read a great author, Stephen King, you know when you get a Stephen King book that you're going to get the crap scared out of you, right? You read a John Grisham book, you're going to get a good law courtroom drama. Well, this is no different, right? So when a programmer is writing the code to an algorithm or a group of programmers, there is still an imprint of the person who's writing that. Again, it's no different. And I just found it interesting. How would you know if you had a program that was lying to you? How would you know if you had a search engine that was designed to deceive you? You wouldn't. And that's the problem. So now that we know that there is this effect out there, right? I call it effect, that the fact that to think that you could get a program could lie to you. I mean, but as I'm sitting here talking on this, I'm kind of reflecting and going, well, why wouldn't it? I mean, isn't software coding, isn't that a creation of mankind, right? In our image? And how could we separate out the character traits, both the valiant ones and then the ones that are vices? Think about it. And when software then becomes into the system, it gets pretty hard to actually spot. So this is why I found this article of particular interest. It really starts getting deep when you start pulling back the layers. Again, how much code, how much software is out there? And this is what I always look to. The fact that it's out there now on the net means that AI knows as well. It really becomes a real problem when AI becomes as smart or smarter than we are. So anyway, I'll leave the link on this one. All right. Now, I found this one. This is at zerohedge.com. We've all kind of known this, that the data has been skewed on global warming. Listen, it is an absolute fact that climate change is taking place. But to simply blame it on the act or actions of a species and totally ignore the most obvious, which are the two following: the sun and the magnetosphere, our magnetic shield. And when these agenda people who call themselves scientists get their heads out of their asses and become real honest brokers at the table, and then take the data, and the data is out there that says you cannot ignore the fact that the single biggest influence on climate is our star. It's a fact. Our star impacts our weather. Now, is it to say that man cannot and does impact weather? Sure, I mean, pollution. But to begin to say that those actions would cause a shift either in extreme climate warmth, or what the real data is showing, that it's actually going the reverse way. And so I happen to think that anyone that pushes anything like the Paris Accord really is nothing more than a shrill, because they're living in a different reality. And you see, and that's the whole point. They're living in a different reality. And how true is that in all of our lives? But again, I digress. The point here is the data is showing that it is not, folks, global warming we need to be concerned about. It's more of the climatic shift. And it's happening. And if we, in fact, are seeing in this grand solar minimum, and if we're seeing the deviations that we are with the magnetosphere, and if, in fact, we know through the geological record that this has happened before, that there have been, in fact, pole reversals, and it has led to climate shifting change. So, again, got to keep it balanced, folks. You know, if you're going to have a discussion with those who unfortunately have been caught up just by what the mainstream media here, and they get their, 20 seconds of the snippet, and as far as they're concerned, that is reality and that is fact. And then you come along and you say, but whoa, wait a minute. You're not considering, again, what the solar impact does to the weather, and then again what's happening to the magnetosphere. So I'll leave the link on this one. All right, this is out of the Wall Street Journal. Elon Musk. Now, let me tell you something about Elon. I just have a great deal of respect for this guy. He is sounding the alarm that if we don't start having open discussions, and listen, I think Congress is the first. I think the UN should put on a global conference on, let's define AI. Let's determine, is AI merely a code, or is it potentially a sentient being? Now, I know it sounds crazy, but hey, listen, Gene Roddenberry already did a great story on this on Star Trek The Next Generation with data. Check the episode out. But again, listen, there's a real problem going on here with AI. And it is everywhere, folks. I mean, this is like walking through a Florida swamp in the middle of August and not thinking you're not going to get bit by a mosquito or something bigger. And it's true. All right, let's go to this one here I thought was real interesting. I think I just deleted that story, but that's okay. So now this one is really cool. I love this website because they really give you what is happening. There is so much happening in the archaeological world. There are new finds being found all the time that are absolutely contradicting what has been traditionally accepted as what history has been. And on this particular story is the inventory Stela, which is and I'll show it to you right here. Here it is right here. And it contradicts what you read in the history books. And particularly what the contradictions is that this deals, and there you get a real good one, with Khufu. So Khufu is thought to have been the one who built the Sphinx, built the pyramids. But there has always been the controversy, as more and more records are found, that they may be older than what is actually been acceptable. Because now if they become older than what is acceptable in the historical record, then that means the whole record of history has to be re-examined, and no one really wants to do that. It really upsets the apple cart. So here's the point of controversy. So this is what Khufu writes. Long live the king of Upper and Lower Egypt, Khufu given life. He found the house of Isis, mistress of the pyramid, by the side of the hollow of Harwan, the Sphinx. He built his pyramid beside the temple of his goddess, and he built a pyramid for the king's daughter. I think that is a Hinesian beside this temple. The place of Harwan, Hormakat, is on the south side of the house of Isis, mistress of the pyramid. He restored the statue, all covered in paintings of the guardian of the atmosphere who guides the winds with his gaze. He replaced the back of the Nemes headdress, which was missing, with the gilded stone. The figure of this god, cut in stone, is solid and will last to eternity, keeping its face looking always to the east. So this is simply saying, well, listen, if the Sphinx has been here even before the pyramids, who built it? That's the real question. Now, it has suffered a lot of damage, and obviously, if we're going back as far as Khufu, I mean, you're dealing, 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. So it lends to the whole point that we don't know our past. We are a species with amnesia. And as soon as that becomes commonly known, then maybe we could begin to address all the gaps. Now, the powers to be don't want that to happen, folks. I mean, you think about it. You got a lot invested. You get the religion, you got the, listen, those cats got thousands of years invested. You got royal bloodlines. You got who I am going to be doing a video here very shortly on something, folks, that, there's good evidence that they're right in front of us. And I'll define they later. So anyway, I hope that you may have found this to be of some interest, and maybe if you're absolutely just bored out of your mind, that you find it to have been somewhat stimulating. All right, folks, we'll talk soon. Be kind to one another. All right, thank you.